Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're traveling deep into the heart of American country music to explore the life of Willie Nelson, a small-town boy from Abbott, Texas, who overcame the Great Depression, chart failures, and even run-ins with the IRS to redefine what it means to be a country legend. Whether you've heard his timeless classics like Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain or On the Road Again, or you're just curious about the man behind the braids, buckle up, because Willie's story spans over 9 decades and it's every bit as raw, inspiring, and rebellious as his songs. Willie Hugh Nelson was born on April 29, 1933, in Abbott, Texas, a little farming town with a population that barely grazed 300. Times were tough from the outset, both for the nation and for Willie's family. His father, Ira Doyle Nelson, and his mother, Muriel Marie Greenhaw, each had some musical ability, but they wrestled with economic hardship and personal conflicts. Not long after Willie was born, they parted ways, leaving Willie and his older sister Bobby to be raised mostly by their paternal grandparents, Alfred and Nancy Nelson. These grandparents, too, were far from well off. They struggled to make rent on a farm and had no illusions about prosperity. Yet amid the scarcity of food and money, they instilled in Willie and Bobby the values of faith, consistent hard work, and the power of music. They taught them gospel hymns and encouraged them to play instruments in their local church, giving them a spiritual framework and a sense that even in adversity, one can find comfort in the simple beauty of a song. Willie took to music with a zeal that far outstripped the usual child's curiosity. By 6, he had already taught himself basic guitar chords, strumming away at an old instrument discovered in the house, and by 7, he'd composed his first song, an act so unusual that his grandparents reportedly paused their daily tasks to listen, amazed that a little boy could conjure up lyrics and melody out of thin air. Outside that house, Abbott's dusty roads and vast farmland framed Willie's early experiences. According to local stories, he used to wander off with his guitar, attempting to replicate the rhythms and progressions he caught on the radio, which broadcast a mesmerizing blend of country crooners, blues shouters, and big band orchestras. Music cut through the bleakness of the Depression for him. It was more than an art form. It was a lifeline, something that opened a door to a bigger, more hopeful world than the hard scrabble farmland that surrounded him. When Willie was 13, yet another blow landed on his young shoulders. His grandfather, Alfred, died. Willie had looked to him not only for shelter but for emotional guidance, so losing him meant losing that paternal figure who'd helped shape his belief in the potential of music and perseverance. The grief was intense. To cope, he started writing poems, letting his emotions spill out onto the page. He refined that impulse into songwriting, a process that would ultimately define the rest of his life. By his teenage years, Willie was juggling day jobs, picking cotton, delivering newspapers, and sometimes helping neighbors with assorted chores, while at night he gravitated toward any environment that let him sing or play guitar. Local dance halls, school events, or even the back of a truck at a small gathering, all became his stage. People from Abbott might recall him as a thoughtful, lanky kid with a guitar slung over his shoulder, always humming a tune in his head. In 1950, after graduating high school, Willie, looking for a way to see beyond Abbott's limited horizon, joined the U.S. Air Force. He hoped for some structure, or at least some traveling, but his tenure was cut short, around 9 months, due to a persistent back problem that made it impossible for him to meet the physical demands. Returning to Texas, he resumed the itinerant lifestyle he'd known. He worked a variety of jobs, including as a disc jockey at small radio stations and, for a while, as a saddle maker. Yet behind every shift, behind every meager paycheck, was the unwavering ambition to become a musician. He performed in bars and clubs at night, sometimes sleeping in borrowed rooms or even in his car. Local radio personalities and bar owners started noticing this fiery kid who had a voice that mixed sincerity and grit in a way that seemed both raw and comforting. In 1952, Willie married Martha Matthews. Their relationship was fraught with ups and downs almost from the start. Still, they had 3 children together, Lana, Susie, and Billy. Money was tight, and Willie's frustration at his slow progress in the music scene contributed to the tension at home. He poured himself into songwriting, amassing a collection of tunes that, in another era or another city, might have made him a star right then. But 1950s Texas was a crowded field for aspiring country musicians. So Willie often found himself overshadowed by more polished or well-connected artists. Still, he kept forging ahead, moving from one town to another, playing for tips or small wages, always hoping the next gig might be the breakthrough. By the dawn of the 1960s, Willie realized if he truly wanted to break out, Nashville was the place to go. With little more than a battered car and a trunk full of half-finished songs, he ventured to Music City around 1960. Initial years in Nashville were nothing short of grueling. Willie's voice, nasal, understated, clashed with the glossy production favored by the powerful labels. Big wigs at these companies, used to the polished style of the Nashville sound that was dominating the airwaves, didn't quite know what to do with him. But as a songwriter, Willie was unstoppable. Around 1961, 2 songs he'd penned found massive success in the hands of other performers. Crazy, recorded by Patsy Cline, soared to number 1. 2 on the country charts and eventually became a hallmark of country music for decades to come. Hello Walls, recorded by Farron Young, topped the charts at number 1. Virtually overnight, Willie became a songwriting powerhouse. Producers who might have snubbed him as a singer recognized that he had a rare gift for melody and lyrics. Among the Nashville establishment, he gained a reputation as a writer of heartbreak tunes who could crystallize the ache of lost love in a few carefully chosen lines. Yet Willie's solo career was a different story. He released his debut album, And Then I Wrote, on Liberty Records in 1962, hoping the success of his compositions would open ears to his own singing. The album sold poorly, possibly because it sounded so different from what country radio was used to. Willie's phrasing was offbeat. His voice lacked the saccharine smoothness the Nashville crowd seemed to want, and the whole project felt raw next to the typical polished productions. Despite the commercial failure, the record revealed glimpses of Willie's future greatness: wry humor, emotional directness, and a refusal to sing by the numbers. The tension between Willie and Nashville's formulaic system would only grow in the coming years. His personal life during this period didn't find stability either. The strain of low income, extended tours, and the unrelenting quest to make a name for himself wore down his marriage to Martha. They divorced in 1962, and Willie soon married Shirley Colley, a fellow singer. That too fell under stress due to his uncertain career. Meanwhile, he was churning out hits for other artists, continuing to refine his own material, and wrestling with the sense that he might never be recognized for what he could bring to the stage himself. As the 1960s wound down, Willie's disillusionment with Nashville's factory-like approach to producing country music reached a breaking point. In 1971, he married Connie Kopke, welcoming 2 daughters, Paula and Amy. Around the same time, weary of the commercial treadmill, Willie made a decision that would define his artistic identity. He returned to Texas in 1972, settling in Austin, a city that was swiftly becoming a hotbed for all kinds of music, from cosmic cowboy country to psychedelic rock. In this cultural gumbo, Willie found the creative latitude he'd always wanted. He grew his hair out, eventually braiding it, embraced a more laid-back aesthetic, and immersed himself in a local scene that was open to experimentation. Freed from the stifling atmosphere of Music Row, Willie began to record albums that would push him into a new stratosphere of acclaim. Shotgun Willie, released in 1973, became a turning point. Critics applauded its unfiltered approach, calling it rebellious yet undeniably country at its core. Commercial success was modest, but the seeds of the outlaw movement were sown. That movement, which also included Waylon Jennings, Jesse Coulter, and Tom Paul Glazer, emphasized artistic freedom over label-dictated polish. Willie's 1974 concept album, Phases and Stages, further cemented his rebellious persona. He sang about divorce and human relationships in a frank manner that mainstream country seldom ventured near, capturing the grit of everyday struggles. Then came Red-Headed Stranger in 1975, an album so sparse that executives thought it was basically a set of demos. The label's apprehension vanished when the record soared off the shelves. Driven by the popularity of Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, Willie's first number one on the country charts. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece of minimalism, telling an evocative story of a preacher on the run. The album soon went multi-platinum, turning Willie into a bona fide star. Perhaps more importantly, it demonstrated that creativity, not formula, could find a massive audience. In 1976, Willie joined forces with Waylon Jennings, Jesse Coulter, and Tom Paul Glazer on an album titled Wanted, The Outlaws. That project made history as the first country album ever to be certified platinum, proving that the outlaw movement was not only artistically daring, but also commercially viable. Willie's transformation from Nashville misfit to counterculture icon was complete. He suddenly had a fan base that ranged from college kids to older country fans, bridging generational divides in a way few artists had done before. Toward the close of the 1970s, Willie flexed his versatility with Stardust, released in 1978. This was a set of pop standards, an idea that many had deemed risky. Yet the album stayed on the Billboard country charts for over a decade, selling around 5 million copies. Willie's gentle, distinctive take on classics like Georgia on My Mind confirmed he was more than just a singer of barroom ballads. It underscored a smooth, interpretive skill that fans didn't always credit him with, overshadowed as they were by the talk of outlaw country. The early 1980s saw Willie branching further into film. He acted in The Electric Horseman in 1979, then starred in Honeysuckle Rose in 1980. From that movie came On the Road Again, an ode to perpetual touring that soared to number one. Won on the country charts and cracked the Pop Top 20, later winning him a Grammy in 1981. His 1982 album, Always on My Mind, boasted a lush ballad of the same name that earned 3 Grammy Awards in 1983. This further solidified Willie's crossover power, making him a household name well beyond hardcore country circles. He also formed alliances that expanded his legend. Teaming with Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Chris Christopherson, he became part of the Highwaymen in 1985. Their debut album, Highwayman, topped the country charts, and the title track's galloping sense of restless wanderlust felt tailor-made for Willie's life philosophy. That same year, spurred by the devastation facing American farmers, he co-founded Farm Aid with Neil Young and John Mellencamp. The first Farm Aid concert was held to raise money and awareness for the plight of family farmers, and Willie continued to host and perform at Farm Aid events year after year. By 2025, Farm Aid would have raised over $70 million, a testament to Willie's commitment to activism. While his star soared, so did the complications in his life. The late 1980s brought a dramatic face-off with the Internal Revenue Service. In 1990, the IRS claimed Willie owed $16.7 million in back taxes, and authorities seized the majority of his assets. Far from hiding, Willie confronted the issue head-on. He recorded the IRS tapes, "Who'll Buy My Memories?" dedicating the proceeds to repaying the government. In an outpouring of loyalty, fans purchased the album and even attended IRS auctions of Willie's property, buying items to return them to him. By 1993, with a mixture of album sales and negotiation, the debt was cleared. Tragedy struck Willie's personal life in 1991 when his son Billy died by suicide at age 33. The heartbreak weighed heavily on him, but he sought solace in music and the support of family. Earlier that year, Willie had married Annie D'Angelo, who became a stabilizing presence through the turmoil. They welcomed 2 sons, Lucas and Micah, both of whom followed their father into a life of music, eventually sharing stages with him as they matured. In the 1990s and 2000s, Willie continued to record tirelessly. Albums like Across the Borderline, 1993, and Spirit, 1996, reminded critics and fans that he could still channel the emotional directness that defined his earlier years. His philanthropic work expanded, especially with Farm Aid, and he spoke out about issues ranging from the environment to marijuana legalization. Multiple arrests for marijuana possession turned him into an unofficial spokesperson for legalization. In 2015, he went a step further by launching Willie's Reserve, his own cannabis brand. However, in 2019, he announced he had stopped smoking weed to protect his lungs, opting instead for edibles. Still, the key message about legalization remained as strong as ever. In 1981, Willie had collapsed due to pneumonia, and in 2001, he suffered a collapsed lung while swimming in Hawaii. Despite these health scares, he pressed on. By the time he reached his late 80s and early 90s, some folks wondered if he would slow down. Then he lost his beloved sister, Bobby Nelson, in 2022. She was 91 and had performed alongside him for decades as his piano player and close confidant. In her honor, Willie poured his feelings into a 2024 album titled The Border, which soared to number 1, 3 on the country charts, proving that even at 91, he could produce meaningful work that resonated with fans. By 2025, Willie Nelson had 73 studio albums, 13 number 1 singles, and 1 number 1 album. 1 hit, over 40 million records sold, and 10 Grammys to his name. For many, he also stood as a cultural icon, bridging generation gaps and championing causes that range from American agriculture to cannabis reform. Throughout it all, his braids, turning from dark to silver, remained a symbol of his refusal to conform to anyone else's expectations. He continued to perform, sometimes at major festivals, sometimes at smaller events, often with sons Lucas and Mike on stage, forging a kind of intergenerational bond that made his concerts feel intimate and timeless. Even as mainstream country changed, morphing into pop country or bro country, Willie's style remained a beacon of authenticity. Younger artists cite him as an influence, and older fans count him as the last of a breed of outlaws who shaped country music by tearing down its safe walls. The range of people who admire him is astonishing, from tie-dyed hippies in their 70s to Gen Z singer-songwriters uploading covers of Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain on YouTube, all acknowledging Willie as the common thread that ties them to the roots of American music.